That's it for today's episode.
Hey, so I was gonna do a segment talking about some behind-the-scenes stuff, concept art, cut ideas, etc., but for, reasons, I'm gonna need to hold off on that. So, who's up for some timeline theorizing? Trust me, this will be fun. I'm not going to try and find the model year of the Botsford's car. I joked in a previous video about not knowing exactly when the show takes place, but with some new info in this season, I think we have a better sense for this. Our first concrete clue is in Two Brains Quartet, which is set during the city's centennial celebration, and also reveals it existed in 1901 since it hosted a county fair that year. This means that the latest the show could be set is 2001. It could hypothetically be anywhere between those years, but the mayor's presentation depicts a guy aging a lot between the 1901 fair and today, so it's clearly been several decades. In addition, we know for a fact home video games exist at this time, see Chuck and Brent Ride Again later in this video, so it's probably no later than the 1980s or so, though given that giant robots, mind control, flying metal mobility aids, and rays that turn gold into potato salad exist, I'm willing to fudge the years a bit with regards to technology. And then, late in the season, we get this moment of Chuck listening to a radio ad. Sure, the show's regular use of radios in tandem with TV could be a clue in itself, but the key here is what the ad actually says.
A year's supply of bread from the Sourdough Central Bread Company, providing the city with scrumptious bread since 1835.
That's quite a bit earlier than the 1901 date for the fair, so if we just assume for simplicity's sake 1835 was the year the city was founded, we find ourselves in the ripe year of 1935. Wait, that can't be right. That was during the Great Depression. Video games didn't exist during the Great Depression, and later this season we get a flashback to when Becky's grandpa was a young adult. Would there have been buildings that tall in, 1870 or so? No, there has to be something I'm missing. The people who write the show wouldn't leave such glaring plot holes, right? They care about having a coherent timeline and set year for the show about a vocabulary superhero, right? They wouldn't just shrug all this off and get on with the immediate story and characters because they think they're so much more important than the lore, right? Moving on.
No, you do not control the flow of time. Not here.
For the last day of summer, Becky has made plans to maximize the amount of fun, but gets hijacked by Tim and Scoops preparing for fall/the school year.
You've organized a list of ways to be carefree?
Yeah, it's even color-coded based on a complex system of fun.
That sound you're hearing is a family of Becky is autistic headcanons multiplying. Meanwhile, Toby has built a robot that can supposedly stop time and plans to make summer last forever. Unfortunately for him, the robot is lazy and decided that destroying all the clocks in the city is close enough. While Kronos, is that Kronos with a CH or a K, runs off, Toby goes shopping for back-to-school clothes, for sailor school I guess, and Tim goes shopping for rates.
This family doesn't look anything like our family, but I guess it's close enough.
This is why representation is so important. Tim calls WordGirl with a megaphone that exposition guy briefly hijacks, unlocking his true power in the process. WordGirl chases Kronos across the city as he destroys various clocks until deactivating him by hitting the snooze button on the alarm clock powering him. Yeah, that makes sense.
If you don't know what prolong means, I would happily define it.
Prolong means to increase or extend.
Stop mansplaining, Toby. You're gonna aggravate WordGirl. Toby latches on way too hard to WordGirl showing the slightest empathy for him, and Becky laments the end of summer until she reunites with Violet, who had been away at art camp all summer learning basic color theory.
Comes a new school year, a great chance to enjoy time with friends and expand her already formidable brain power.
You laugh, but clearly Toby just has PTSD from the last time he had to play dodgeball on the show. This episode kind of feels like a Jimmy Neutron episode in a way, making a robot to alter time and extend summer only for the robot to run around destroying clocks is exactly something the real boy genius would do. Yeah, I said it, step down, Toby.
But I'm busy being a terrifying boy genius!
I am very, very scary. Of course, the big difference is that Jimmy Neutron would spend the episode trying to stop the robot before coming up with some brilliant plan or new invention to seal the deal. Toby just has a fashion montage. And WordGirl herself does surprisingly little. She only dons the costume a little under 70% into the episode. Yes, I did the math. And her fight with Kronos consists of a couple more clocks getting destroyed, one punch, and hitting a button. Spending so much time on Becky's summer fun causes the pacing of the action scenes to suffer, though I admit that may be for the best. Kronos misunderstanding its instructions and destroying clocks is funny, but it's not the kind of joke that can sustain a whole episode, so maybe it's good we didn't prolong our time with him.
For instance, if someone were trying to enjoy her last day of summer vacation but kept getting interrupted, that would be aggravating.
The episode's third featured word is passive-aggressive. I think the main point of the episode was to give kids just going back to school, and yes, this episode did premiere in early September, a lesson about not being too disappointed at summer ending. Becky and Toby both struggle with this, but while Toby tries to spit on the fabric of time, Becky eventually sees the bright side and moves on when she reunites with Violet. It's basically a more specialized version of a don't be afraid of the future moral. I think the lesson is good, but there's better ways of making it entertaining. Maybe an episode about a villain actually freezing time? Maybe WordGirl is left unfrozen because she's in space or whatever and indulges herself with extra free time until going to stop the villain? We can only dream.
Whatever, none of those collections is anywhere near as cool as my collection of hand-drawn WordGirl comics.
Tommy, give it up. You're not George and Harold.
But as you all know, I am the
Home run!
king!
Becky's school year has apparently gotten off to a good start as she comes home with a boatload of awards and commendations.
This award is presented to the student who wins the most awards.
Does anyone else hear that? It sounds like someone frothing at the mouth? But TJ loses his cool at the realization he's not earning such recognition for anything and storms off to his baseball game. One of his swings ends up hitting the ball so far it beans a villain in the head and thwarts a robbery. Reginald, apparently liking baseball players better than traditional superheroes, or maybe he's just sexist, hails TJ as an extraordinary hero, despite the fact the villain was Amazing Rope Guy, so I don't think this even counts as beating a villain.
Move over, WordGirl, and make way for an extraordinary new superhero.
Gee, I wonder where this episode is going. TJ gets a key to the city ceremony at night, because bedtimes are for lame kids who don't fight adult criminals, where the mayor unveils
The bat signal!
Isn't there already one of those?
What? Were you thinking of the flying mammal?
Actually, it originally was that, but they had to change it to a baseball bat for legal reasons. This thing was just collecting dust until TJ fortunately showed up. TJ abuses his position to laze around eating donuts, progressively annoying Becky, but he gets called into action when Two Brains threatens the mayor for the keys to a new cheese museum.
Our mayor will let just about anyone build a museum.
Naturally, the mad scientist is the only one with any sense in the situation, and the home run king is easily captured before WordGirl shows up. TJ does get to save the day by baseballing the goop ray, but admits he's not actually cut out to be a superhero. Well, if nothing else, this episode helped me figure out the city's real name. It's Fickleburg. Once again, the populace is easily distracted into thinking some random guy is cooler than WordGirl and she's no longer worthy of their attention. At this point, I can't even tell if the show has overused this trope or I just don't like it. Becky's indignance comes off as a bit obnoxious, but not because of her being unjustified, more so because she is justified and it's annoying seeing her get pushed to this point. Maybe if TJ had done something legitimately impressive, like beat a villain to death with his baseball bat, this would feel a bit more measured, but nope, they just did the bare minimum. This episode feels like it really needed a montage of TJ doing superhero stuff, like Violet got in Violet Superhero, the better version of this concept. Or maybe if this had happened later in the show, we could have had Johnson as TJ's sidekick instead of Bob. That alone probably would have propelled this episode from a D to a B. The whole TJ thinks his superpowers come from donuts thing also feels like a flub. Donuts don't come up at all prior to him hitting Amazing Rope Guy, so it comes off more like TJ using his new status as an excuse to indulge himself. The episode is only really saved by Dr. Two Brains.
Well, I guess it sort of stings. A little.
For obvious reasons. I do like the scene of WordGirl reassuring TJ of his talents after the fight, and the lesson of don't get ahead of yourself and in over your head is fine enough, but this is overall just not a very enjoyable episode. It's absurd in all the bad ways, and not enough in the good ways, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. I've just been on autopilot this whole segment. Are we still on the clock episode? For reasons that elude me, the dramatic chase music is playing over traffic.
It's another busy day in the city, and it looks like the Botsford family is part of the hustle and bustle.
Becky breaks off from Tim to catch Granny Mae, who tries to scam her way out of police custody.
My neck is sore.
Despite her deteriorating acting skills, this works. The police are terrible. You mean the police in this show, right? Yeah. At the grocery store.
Excuse me, I believe we know each other. You're that nice woman who babysat my children.
It's weird when a show goes out of its way to keep continuity while simultaneously forgetting something just as important, like Tim actively working for Granny as a spokesperson? Maybe the spritzer causes amnesia. Granny plays up her injury and basically turns Tim into her unwitting getaway driver. And keeping up the continuity thread, we hear Tiny Big on the radio. This proves canceling people doesn't actually do anything. Things come to a head when a swarm of police arrive at the Botsford home because obviously everyone saw Tim's plates, including Violet, and wouldn't that have been a weird conversation? Becky, I think your dad is a criminal now. Violet, if you didn't like beans on the Botsford, you can just say that. WordGirl borrows a police walkie-talkie and tricks Granny into bragging about fooling Tim into aiding her crime spree, revealing the truth to both him and the police. Granny retaliates with her newest old lady gadget.
Have a tissue! Boop!
Ugh, gross! Ugh.
Granny needs a better R&D department. On the surface, this may sound like a rehash of the Spritzer episode I mentioned, but the big difference is that here, Tim takes a far more direct role in Granny's activities. Not on purpose, of course, but because he's basically a nicer Homer Simpson. His obliviousness rides the edge of being obnoxious, but he still manages to stay endearing, largely because Granny is actively preventing him from figuring out the truth. That's kind of a theme of this episode, things that almost fall flat, but get saved by little additions. See this joke, where the usage and timing of the police cars really brings it home.
We wouldn't want to break the law now, would we?
You're right.
Or this bit, which is entirely carried by Granny's tone of voice.
How did you get that injury?
I saved hundreds of baby animals from a fire.
This isn't a stellar episode, but it does better with the repeated concepts than I expected, particularly with the Tim Granny May focus. Still not the biggest Granny May fan, but this is one of her better episodes.
It would be cool to be named Rick. Hi, my name's Rick.
I think Dr. Two Brains is more of a Rick. What do you think of the name Jerry? Or would that be stepping on the narrator's toes?
Oh, my poor ears. Stop that at once.
Butcher wants to get a book from the library, but said book is in the very loud hands of the Whammer. Whammer suggests he and Butcher team up because this is the closest he can get to finding a date. Violet questions why Becky never comes to her house. After some grilling, Violet gets upset with Becky and storms off. Hey, cut her some slack, Violet. It's not Becky's fault the artist hadn't assigned your house yet. WordGirl intercepts Butcher and Whammer at the grocery store and points out their relationship is doomed because they have nothing in common. Whammer says they do. They're both loud. So I guess their dates just consist of yelling incoherently for 2 hours. The villains get away, with Butcher unleashing his coolest meat attack yet in Earth Steak. Geez, what's next? Gristle Missile, Rib Cage, Bovine Spongiform Encephalopathy... Shot? While Whammer and Butcher prepare to steal 2 ancient pillows filled with ground beef, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard, Becky stops by Violet's home. Becky admits she's uncomfortable with the place's extremely bizarre rules, like you must whistle while opening a window, or if you go on this one tile you need to sing a song, or during a meal all foods must be eaten in alphabetical order. I made 2 of those up, but it really doesn't matter which. Surprisingly, being open and honest solves the issue, and the two make up just before Becky needs to leave to intercept the villains. Also, we see a montage where Butcher and Whammer fight each other for no clear reason. Couple spat. WordGirl uses her knowledge of the villain manual the two were using to outthink and outmaneuver them, and the viewer finally realizes the narrator wasn't in this episode.
Join us again.
Hey, where were you this whole episode?
Oh, I had some errands to run.
You will never unhear that. Or never unhear that? The loudness thing is something that never occurred to me, but yeah, Butcher and Whammer are both pretty declarative villains. I like how Butcher is in denial about his loudness while Whammer completely embraces it, gives a little edge to their dynamic. Butcher's growing annoyance with Whammer feels like Whammer's debut was Chuck, though the lack of a real climax to their relationship hurts things a little. I actually like the Becky-Violet subplot a lot. I wouldn't want every conflict like this to get cut off by the characters just talking and working things out early, but it does feel like a breath of fresh air to occasionally see drama not interfere with character relationships. Also, Violet's house is the best set on the show, and Violet herself is adorable when she's upset.
Violet, come on, don't be shy.
Please, tell him I like being shy.
I want to see unhappy Violet more. Give her a boatload of emotional turmoil. I'm sure that won't have consequences. I want to say this is an alright episode for the humor and subplot, but when I started writing this script, I had no memory of what happened in this one at all until I looked at my notes. Watching it again, while the Butcher-Whammer dynamic is theoretically interesting, they don't really make it that funny. I'm thinking a better route would be to lean in more to Butcher and Whammer not getting along, and parallel them more with Becky and Violet. Maybe show the villains refusing to communicate their problems while the kids fix things by communicating. Or maybe drop Whammer and go all in on Butcher trying to stay quiet and freaking WordGirl out with how different he is, similar to Class Act. I think either of these could have succeeded in being actually fun.
So you guys want to know how he defeated you?
No, but I have a hunch you're gonna
Well,
tell us.
you see, I also have a copy of the Supervillains in You manual. There is a supervillain.
Long-running intellectual magic mind battle between gay supervillains.
WordGirl is receiving her 199.
We acknowledge the heroic efforts of Logic Pajam.
Thank you.
Of course. Sorry about that. Logic Pajam is receiving her 199th key to the city, which I'm pretty sure puts her above the Kingdom Hearts series at this point. However, during a photo shoot, the key mysteriously floats away into the big left hand of Big Left Hand Guy. That son of a... The populace blames Logic Pajam for letting the key get stolen, and unlike most cases of the public turning on her, they kinda have a point. Meanwhile, we learn BLH Guy's partner in crime is Invisi-Bill. Tim catches on to Becky's bad mood, and Becky's attempts to conceal the truth involves a bad play. I'd say this wouldn't go well, but if Monsters Inc. taught me anything, is that fake plays actually are a good idea. After Logic Pajam defeats Amazing Rope Guy in a random slide projector montage, Invisi-Bill steals the jewels instead. Logic Pajam managed to suppress her ego just long enough to catch up to the taxi and interrogate Big Left Hand Guy, but he doesn't have anything on him. Because he accidentally left Invisi-Bill on the sidewalk. With the jewels. After Invisi-Bill arrives home, he rants about not being acknowledged, and Big Left Hand Guy tries to appease him while Logic Pajam and Huggy show up after following the cab. BLH Guy gets captured, but Invisi-Bill slips away. After Becky learns a lesson about not getting caught up in recognition, she decides to put on another award ceremony for herself.
It's not like I need another key.
Lesson learned? Invisi-Bill steals the key again and gets caught through a combination of poor taxi service and a floating monkey. I think this is one of my favorite moral episodes so far. I like how Logic Pajam's desire for recognition is reflected in Invisi-Bill, and how both of these indirectly enable the thefts. In the end, Logic Pajam applying humility while Invisi-Bill can't get past his need for attention end up causing the letter's downfall. Tim's compost heap subplot
That's a nice looking compost heap.
ties into this too, with Tim just wanting to help his garden and being the one to teach Becky the lesson. Pretty standard concepts, but there's a reason they've become standard. And of course, the irony of the invisible guy needing attention makes for a pretty good running gag.
Sometimes I just feel so invisible.
The villains' rapport is pretty good as well. They're school friends who decide to move in and enter business together, and they do a god job. And they do a good job conveying that with their interactions, both when they're fighting and when they're getting along early on.
Yeah, I kind of like it the long way. You're right, it's more fun, yay!
They're like if Ted Mosby and What on earth happened there? They're like if Ted Mosby and Marshall Erickson became supervillains. This episode is decently funny, but I think the moral is where it really shines, teaching a really good, if simplistic, lesson to kids, and just pulls it off really satisfyingly storytelling-wise. And we get some more highlight for characters I honestly thought would just become random extras. Really, I just love how the coach's students are becoming more important than the coach himself. Like I was a loser anyway. Not as much of a loser as Bo Handsome, though.
22475. That's my birthday.
Mr. Big has officially come up with the best villain plan in the show, opening a store for birthday supplies, and deliberately catering to Eileen the birthday girl, who's gotten the mayor to pay for her stuff somehow. Did she threaten to reveal he sleeps with a stuffed bear or something? And this inspires Mr. Big to, in short, turn every kid in town into birthday girls. All of these people will be dead soon. Actually, he mind controls the parents into thinking their kids have birthday every day, which leads to the standard, if cool things happen all the time, they'd lose their spark lesson. But this plan has another unfortunate side effect when Mr. Big gets sold out, and Eileen is not happy about that.
First, give me the mind control device.
Here.
Should I keep a tally for every time WordGirl blackmails Mr. Big into stopping his evil plan? Unfortunately, Eileen is physically incapable of learning the moral, so WordGirl takes an alternate approach by having her wish happy birthday to another girl for whom it really is her birthday. I'm already so sick of saying birthday. This apparently counts as generosity for the purpose of canceling out Eileen's powers, and we end on... Did WordGirl finally snap? All these people will be really dead soon. This is another weird villain pairing, but I think it works super well. It's not really a team-up, but it allows for some entertaining interactions and forms the bedrock of the episode. Mr. Big could probably retire off Birthday Girl revenue alone, but he flies too close to the sun when he tries to eke out just a bit more money from other kids. So, basic capitalist. There's just something so funny and oddly satisfying about Mr. Big getting so easily upstaged when Eileen goes big. Helps that you know from the start something like this will happen, so the anticipation really gets to build. I do think the way Eileen gets defeated is a bit pat and underwhelming, but I still think this is one of the better Birthday Girl episodes, even if it's only a Birthday Girl episode for the last 3 minutes. This is also another moral-focused episode. Are we getting more of these this season, or was I just too daft to notice them previously? Something happening less often means more hoopla when it does, and going for cheap instant gratification will only hurt, or disappoint, you in the long run. This is a really good fit for both Birthday Girl, obsession with an event that doesn't happen as often as she thinks, and Mr. Big, sells things as quick and easy thrills. On top of that, the episode is really funny too. Even writing the script now, I'm finding and remembering more than I initially jotted in my notes.
And if you find a birthday supply store with lower prices, bring in your receipt and I'll eat it.
Perhaps ironically, I would pay to see that. And a scene where Tim tries to force feed birthday cake to TJ for a fake horror bit. This episode is just a lot stronger than I initially thought, and balances its two villains differently from its predecessors, but the approach taken really fits the story.
Do you have to mimic the baby talk? I find it annoying.
Eileen, pay no attention to her.
Poor Leslie needs some time off after dealing with all this nonsense. Maybe she can get some in the next episode?
The most important thing we've learned as far as children are concerned is never let them near the television set.
Apparently Scoops made some connections back during Kids Action News since he's on TV again interviewing WordGirl. WordGirl cuts the interview off though because Pretty Princess is on soon. Kids these days. Turns out this obsession has also given Mr. Big an idea to build a robotic pony.
Sir, do you plan on turning WordGirl into a horse?
Leslie, this is a children's show and... Oh, wait, you said horse. Never mind. You know, back in the day, I mistakenly thought I heard SpongeBob say the word prostitute. That was an awkward conversation afterwards. Mr. Big's plan is to mind control WordGirl into thinking she's in the TV show so he can do something. Maybe giving him 2 episodes in a row was a mistake.
Wait, are you being sarcastic?
I can't tell anymore, sir.
Every day, thousands of executive assistants and other office workers meet this fate, but we at the Perister Rehabilitation Institute for Corporate Kids can change this. For a small donation of $45 an hour, while Leslie leaves to not watch the show herself, Mr. Big succeeds in controlling WordGirl. As Pretty Princess, he tells WordGirl to evacuate the Enchanted City, aka kidnap everyone in the non-Enchanted City. Everyone else just thinks this is WordGirl giving free rides, except Huggy, who goes to stop her. The day is saved by Mr. Big... getting the lore wrong.
Yes. It's all powered by Mr. Big Water Supply.
That's just not true!
Leslie exposes herself as a superfan of a kid's cartoon, real loser there, and WordGirl breaks free. Mr. Big tries to save himself by reenacting a Tekken 5 ending. Okay, this was actually a decently creepy episode, or at least a bit unnerving. Mr. Big's mind control isn't usually played up like this, but Birthday Town did a little like that with the commercial, and this episode goes in hard on it between the distorted Pretty Princess music and Mr. Big's voice under PPs.
He's threatening to invade the Enchanted City!
I wasn't expecting the unnerving elements going in, but one thing I did expect was for this episode to be funny, and it definitely was. I loved every moment of Mr. Big struggling to keep up with WordGirl and Leslie's fangirlism and his feeble attempts to get a last-ditch victory. I'm really starting to appreciate these quick victory lap fights that come after the main plan has already been thwarted. Leslie being a fan isn't really that funny until the end though. Her deadpan tone doesn't really fit the joke that well. Her ending rant does at least lean into the contrast between that tone and her high-energy spiel. I'm also not big on the citizens' enthusiasm. I get the joke, but it's just kind of flat. Well, save for this bit.
Hey, I want my money back.
but it was a free ride.
I'm also not sure if dupe was the best featured word for this episode. I suppose mind control could be taken as a trick, but I feel like it'd be more appropriate for tricking someone into doing something as opposed to puppeteering them. Maybe they could have done something more interesting with the TV show mind control concept than hoist people away with giant pet carriers, but I think the episode is still pretty good and uses its premise well.
I'm going to empty out the city, thanks to viewers like you.
They're telling us something. PBS Kids has been evil this whole time. How else can you explain the existence of Word World?
We're going to have a debate where we are high.
Becky is split between a school debate club and a WordGirl appearance at the grocery store. Thankfully, we are spared the trope of constant switching between obligations, this time, as she has the far better idea of having Huggy impersonate her. I mean, it worked before, so... Becky's opponent is Scoops, and they're debating what the club's mascot will be. Becky picks Unicorn. At this rate, I'm surprised she didn't name herself Unicorn last, and Scoops picks Armadillo. Meanwhile, Lady Redundant Woman is running for president of the Villain Association, but embarrassingly forgot the convention snacks. This is what happens when the clone you outsourced your chores to runs away out of heartbreak. LDR raids the grocery store for food, and I'm shocked stuff like this doesn't happen more often. Huggy forgets he's not actually useless and calls WordGirl in.
Maybe I should go find a substitute so we can all keep our pencils sharp. Ugh, got to work on my excuses.
Maybe you and Miles Morales should go to a lying class together. WordGirl shows up and helps stop the dupes, demanding Lady Redundant Woman pay for the food, and she does so. Sounds convenient for everyone, but this is really gonna hurt LDR's chances in the election when the other villains find out she legally purchased something. The debate wraps up with a tie vote, so Miss Davis, Miss Davis is a character now, decides the mascot will be a magic turtle in a weird attempt at compromise. Unfortunately, this just causes more arguing. The inevitable fate of third-party candidates. I've talked before about really liking episodes where Huggy gets some individual spotlight, and this seems like it's really leaning in that direction, and then Huggy doesn't actually do anything. Want to see the monkey sidekick fight an army of duplicates on his own like he did the Butcher once? Tough. He immediately uses the emergency button and doesn't do anything until WordGirl shows up. I'm not big on the debate either. Becky has a few funny moments, and Miss Davis gets a good debut.
Should I keep going?
I'm shrugging.
But Scoops just rattles off animal facts like he hit his head and thinks he's on Wild Kratts, and there's a surprising amount of dead air in terms of jokes. I think the best part of the episode would be the villain convention, just because it's always fun to see a villain convention. Well, actually, there is this moment from the climax.
Do you hear that siren, Lady Redundant Woman? It sounds like the police, the cops, the local law enforcement.
The presentation of this scene nails the dramatic in a goofy way feel it's aiming for between WordGirl's voice acting and the framing, and it leads directly into Lady Redundant Woman easily acquiescing to WordGirl's demands. Also, it's a nice touch how the real LDR is forced to clean the grocery store on her own. Something about a personalized punishment feels more satisfying. This episode could be worse, but squandering the Huggy substitutes for WordGirl premise is what really makes me sour on it. It's such a fun idea, and you do nothing with it beyond the grocery store manager yelling at Huggy. Huggy deserves better. He needs a new agent.
Get ready to give me all your snack food.
Not any of the peanuts, cashews, or almonds, though. Blech. Ew. Gross. Chuck is celebrating the opportunity to have the house all to himself for a day, and like any teenager in this situation, he puts on a partying montage. That was the whole thing, by the way. Unfortunately for Chuck, Two Brains catches wind of this and decides to pop over.
Chucky, baby!
Listen, no, I'm not supposed to.
The whole house to yourself, you know what that means, hmm?
Laying on the flirting a bit thick there, aren't you, Steven? Suddenly I'm questioning what that grilled cheese sandwich crime you initially called about actually was. Meanwhile, Becky is also left home alone as the other Botsfords leave for a WordGirl-themed event.
Going would be reckless, Bob. Someone might recognize us.
Her relaxing day at home has to wait, though, when she overhears an alarm at the grocery store, only to discover Two Brains escaped before she showed up. Chuck, meanwhile, is forced to suffer through the city's entire villain population being crammed into his tiny house. Except not, as the villains are apparently all recklessly running rampant, really regrettable, and overwhelming WordGirl until some painters help her discover where everyone is hiding out.
Well, I'd love to take you and your 12 duplicates out for dinner.
You got it.
Whoa, he's bisexual. I didn't know that.
By the way, I'm bisexual. I forgot.
The narrator convinces Chuck to help WordGirl fight the villains to save his mom's house, and WordGirl repays the favor by instantly cleaning everything. The envy of all kids with chores.
Tell your mom I said hi!
This isn't funny anymore. You remember that scene in Sky High where they put on a rowdy teen party, but the teens also have superpowers? This episode is that, but with villains. Granted, we don't get to see a lot of the party besides generic.
We can't have this! You're making a mess!
But it is still funny in a similar way to the conventions, and Two Brains acting all catty and mischievous is a hoot. Chuck being staunchly against the party from the start is also a nice touch. It makes the audience sympathize with him, and makes it a bit more satisfying when he teams up with WordGirl briefly. I didn't really bring these up, but the running gags of the painters and Tim's overprotectiveness were also pretty funny, especially the latter.
Then, a giant horde of karate penguins tries to take over our house. What do you do?
Easy, challenge them to a card game. After a bit of a weaker episode pair, this episode's goofiness really hit the spot. It's not exactly immaculate, but its high energy and not being a regular crime spree really helps it stick out.
Oh no! All of WordGirl's greatest foes are recklessly running rampant throughout the city!
And WordGirl's never been able to capture an enormous band of criminals in 5 seconds before.
How are we gonna find the princess with the power going out?
The energy monster rudely skips out on spotting for Whammer and sucks up power from the prison's new electric fence, which someone thought was a good idea. Meanwhile, the Botsfords are preparing for a Pretty Princess marathon.
Truth be told, I even have a soft spot in my heart for old Count Cloudy.
Dad, Count Cloudy is the bad guy.
This just in, Becky doesn't watch her own show. The energy monster gets a job at the power plant somehow and sucks up all the power, leaving the Botsfords pretty princessless. What do you mean this is rehashing Pretty Princess premiere? Tim decides this is a perfect opportunity for a lesson about not relying on television for entertainment, says the television show, and starts on some stories and games. The power plant employees, meanwhile, are hard at work fixing the crisis by ordering pizza.
Sure, Chief. It's only $1 a slice.
Exposition guy reveals what's going on. WordGirl goes to the power plant and she beats the energy monster same way as always, except Huggy gets to distract her with a card trick this time. I miss when pizza was that cheap. The Botsfords learn a lesson about how there's more ways to be entertained than just TV, though TV is still pretty neat, says the TV show. I'd say the peaks of this episode are the power plant scenes. The energy monster impersonating an employee even when she's already eaten all the power and could just leave is pretty good. And hey, she gets to reunite with her mother.
Gamma radiation ray!
The moral is basic and the Botsford scenes are a bit dull, but overall fine. Tim's as endearing as ever, and I like how he's getting to show more emotional maturity by teaching the morals in a few of these newer episodes. But I'm starting to get the sense the energy monster is becoming one of the more repetitive villains. She's a kaiju who feeds on electricity and inconveniences Becky by causing blackouts until she decides to stop her. She does get to show a bit more personality here, but overall her depictions are getting persistently samey. Maybe her getting to talk somehow would remedy this. This is still probably one of the more distinct and entertaining EM episodes despite that though. Maybe when you're done watching this video you should go and read a book or something. You're the best around! Nothing's gonna ever keep you down except for WordGirl. On Student Award Day, we are quickly introduced to Becky's classmate Victoria Best, who has a very familiar voice. Oh, I know where I've heard it before.
These are the testicles. They make sperm. That's pretty much it.
It soon becomes apparent that Victoria and her parents have based their entire lives on living up to their last names. Would it be better or worse to imagine they changed their name to that? And Victoria ends up winning
all of the awards.
All except one, Best Reader. Yeah, that's who that goes to. Later, Victoria steals Becky's trophy using a combination of a hypnotic recorder and trophy stealing vision. Oh, so that's what happened to my 15-year-old 4th place wrestling trophy. Becky confronts Victoria at her mansion with a very bizarre door, but doesn't have any proof of Victoria stealing the Best Reader trophy or any of the many others she possesses. Becky goes WordGirl and challenges Victoria to a competition the next morning. Said competition turns out to be who can eat the most crackers against Huggy, who easily wins. Victoria tries her recorder trick again, but her mouth is too dry.
What's wrong, Victoria? Is your mouth too dry from eating all those salty, salty crackers?
Coincidentally, Salty Salty Cracker is the perfect description of Victoria right now. Victoria uses her trophy vision to steal Huggy's prize, but the prize is a net.
I'm the best.
Victoria's thievery is exposed, and she's forced to give back all her stolen trophies. Victoria feels like a sort of mirror of Toby in a way. Both of them are boastful kid villains, but Toby has a crush on WordGirl and a decent relationship with his mother, while Victoria dislikes WordGirl and is being emotionally abused by her parents. It's like they wanted to make a kid villain that was more explicitly sympathetic than Toby or Eileen in terms of her motivations, and honestly, I'm a bit torn on her introduction.
Victoria, it's nice that you take pride in yourself.
Does Scoops have a crush on Victoria? Are we gonna get a love triangle? Is there a secret community of Scootoria shippers who make creepy art of Victoria hypnotizing him? I don't hate her like some people do, but her character is basically just saying 2 words over and over.
The best, 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 the best. It already gets kinda repetitive within this single episode, but Kirsten Shaw's delivery goes a long way to keeping her fun to watch.
I'm completely f***ing normal.
I think Victoria has a lot of potential if they could diversify her jokes or lean more into the very clear emotional manipulation her parents have put her through, but for now, a bit of a shaky start. Doesn't really help that the plot feels off. Trapping Victoria with the competition makes sense, but the golden net and the salty crackers only really makes sense if you assume WordGirl and Huggy had already figured out how Victoria's powers work. Maybe they could figure out the recorder part if they realized they were in a trance and caught the last few notes as they woke up, but how could they have figured out the trophy stealing vision? They're not BBC's Sherlock. I think coming prepared with earplugs would have made more sense. But it's ultimately not that big of a plot hole and doesn't really out-prioritize any discussion to Victoria. I suppose at this point all we can do is wait and see if she becomes the best villain or the best at being annoying.
Don't worry, I'll be sure to arrange another bird-watching trip that's convenient for everyone.
Super.
Gee, Bo Handsome really wants to hang out with these kids, huh?
Hold it right there, Dr. Two Brains.
That's Dr. Two Brains to you.
I think I said that.
Oh.
I have no joke that can improve that moment. Gold star. Two Brains' ill-fated attempt to use a snooze ray on the city leads to him and his henchmen getting put to sleep.
Want more, WordGirl?
Huggy is forced to crash the blimp right next to the spaceship hideout. WordGirl holds off on taking away the sleeping criminals so she can watch Pretty Princess. Okay, does this qualify as an addiction yet?
I'll tell you what procrastinate means later.
But apparently she has Black Canary powers she never uses, which accidentally wake the villains up.
We should definitely let WordGirl know we're available to house sit.
Yeah, be quiet or I'll sit on you.
I have it on good authority, some people would like that. The henchmen want to frolic about the hideout, but Dr. Killjoy wants to get out of there until he locates Continuity Central and reclaims his snooze ray. The resulting fight leads to Two Brains rediscovering the superhero book he wrote as Stephen Boxleitner, resulting in a rare soft moment of pathos as he and WordGirl reflect on their past. Then Two Brains gets knocked into the exit chute from way back in a game of cat and mouse. Apparently the writers were in a nostalgic mood. This one is a real highlight. WordGirl procrastinating with her cartoon is boring, but the deliberate repetitiveness of said cartoon almost lampshades it, and we wisely spend the bulk of our time with Two Brains and the henchmen. It serves as a vector for more in-depth exploration of the hideout, and also Two Brains' escalating exasperation with his henchmen's, let's say, frivolity.
So you're taking over my hideout now.
Honestly, I'm not too crazy about it, but the henchmen love it.
Two Brains, you should probably stop spoiling your children. This is also the first time since a game of cat and mouse, I think. That's funny. That brings up the elephant-sized mouse in the room that is Stephen Boxleitner. I like how we get a brief reference to their former friendship early on, so the book suddenly popping up doesn't feel so abrupt. It's not a big moment, but it reminds us that there's more to their relationship than just hero and villain, and it even seems for a moment like Dr. Two Brains has a little regret for how things turned out. Even putting aside the pathos though, this is just one of the most fun episodes of the season so far. The dynamic between Two Brains and the henchmen is great, and it's just cool to see this minor setting be the base for an entire episode. Where does WordGirl get all this stuff anyway? Is the vending machine meant to indicate it all came with the ship? Is ping pong the official sport of Lexicon?
To frolic. It means to play around merrily.
I didn't realize we hit the body swap episode this early. Finally, we reached this guy. I've been waiting to talk about him. The one WordGirl villain I never see anyone talking about.
Apprehended a villain for the 10,478th time.
10,000 1479, thank you very much.
We don't know how many days off she's had from fighting criminals, and we don't know how team-ups are handled here, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll assume she fights one a day, which would mean WordGirl has been in action for 28.71 years. Maybe timeline theories are a bad idea after all. The Botsfords are eating at a pirate-themed restaurant where one of the employees, Captain Tangent, has a tendency for going on long tangents to the point it annoys the customers. He's given one last chance and goes to serve the Botsfords, where he gets enabled hard by Tim. Note to self, write fanfic about Tim adopting this guy. According to the wiki, he's a teenager, so that should be doable. Captain Tangent gets fired, but is so obsessed with, oh, hey, Raoul Demiglass is working here now. Anyway, Tangent really wants to be a pirate and gets his wish when he discovers pirate treasure beneath the restaurant that makes his hook magnetic and brings his plush parrot to life. Tangent robs everyone in the restaurant, and everyone finds it so cool they don't care. Did all the other villains go through this before they became Old Hat? WordGirl gets beaten, something she's actually embarrassed about later. Hey, don't worry, not everyone can clear the level first try. And Tangent sets about setting up his lair, and he still wants his job back. Maybe it's less he wants to be a pirate and more he wants the free meals. Captain Tangent tries to rob a coin counter at the grocery store, but WordGirl intercepts and defeats him. Honestly, I think Captain Tangent might be a bit underrated. His boring tangents are ironically pretty funny, and it's another case of a villain embodying a language concept. I do think it's a missed opportunity to not have WordGirl use his tendency to ramble to beat him though. That feels pretty obvious. Heck, the final battle feels pretty rushed. Huggy fighting the parrot was fun. How is this guy the first to have his own evil animal sidekick? But the time between WordGirl showing up and her defeating Tangent is less than a minute. Could we not have stretched this out a little? Well, they spent about 40 seconds on an amazing rope that cold open at the candy factory, so what does that tell you? Maybe it's cause I have my own tangential tendency, but Captain Tangent is honestly kind of endearing with his enthusiasm, and his pirate theme is a lot of fun. His beard is faker than Flintheart Glomgold's. There's also an attempt to make things more personal by throwing in a minor trophy Sally one, but it feels kind of shoehorned in. It doesn't amount to anything but last shot fodder. Probably doesn't help that I legitimately can't tell if Sally's reaction is supposed to be tears of joy at her minor accomplishment or sad disappointment she got 10th place. I'd say the buffet fight is a highlight, showing off Captain Tangent as a villain for the first time and having a pretty good joke of the civilians are being dumb again, just kidding, they know what's going on but find magnetism fascinating for some reason. Classic comedy staple.
I mean, you do realize they're just coins, right?
Tell me why we've got to cry.
Brent comes to see Chuck in the middle of a bank robbery to say he's lost his confidence and zest for sandwiches, new record on getting both vocabulary words out of the way, after pitching peanut butter and jelly bread, which is even worse than crustless bread. I'm shocked these people picked now of all times to have taste.
While you were busy talking to that handsome guy, another man robbed the bank.
Hey, supervillainy is a cutthroat business. Sometimes literally. WordGirl doesn't show up because her crime detector machine is broken, so she decides to hire Handyman Todd from WordGirl makes him oh wait, Handyman Tom, never mind. So was Future Scoops trying to impersonate this guy? Chuck offers to let Brent on as a sidekick, and the two decide to rob Reuben Grinder from Chuck Makes a Buck. And this one is an actual cameo. Reuben gets distracted talking to Brent, and WordGirl happens to bring the repairman here for lunch. Brent is absolutely useless, just negotiating a new business arrangement with Reuben. What kind of inconsiderate jerk leaves his brother to just rob a place on his own? After beating Chuck, WordGirl and Huggy realized the machine was just not plugged in, so they didn't even need a repairman.
No problemo. Here's my bill.
Your bill.
Does WordGirl get a stipend from the city for her pseudo-dystopian surveillance system? No, seriously, at the end we see what are probably live feeds of several villains' homes. What's up with that? This is another episode that suffers from too much time spent on setup. Want to see Chuck's charismatic, nice, not evil brother do crimes along with him? Well, here you are. For less than 3 minutes. We didn't need so much dwelling on Brent feeling bad for his lack of confidence, him accidentally derailing the robbery where the conversation was funny, but felt way too limited. Compare this to villain team-up episodes like Mousezilla, The Young and the Meatless, The Invisi-Bill Hand, or half of Whammer's episodes. They'll have multiple set pieces, establish a small arc showing how their relationships evolve over multiple crimes. I think it would have made more sense to have Chuck recruit Brent as a sidekick at the bank, skip the scene at their mom's house, and show one or two more robberies that don't go well. And then there's the biggest issue with this episode, Brent's costume. Look at that thing. Is that a red tank top with Chuck's face on it? Is that all Brent has for a top? And green swim goggles, and I can't even tell what that pickle thing is. Oh my god. It's not all bad though. Reuben Grinder returning was a pleasant surprise. He still has a lot of energy, and the mutual friendliness between them is kind of a civilian version of the Chuck WordGirl dynamic.
I'm a villain. I'm supposed to cheat.
This is the actual reason the two of them stopped working together after their business partnership last season. The other supporting character, Handyman Tom, is... Tom. Going in, I actually misremembered this episode as one where Chuck tries to crush the city with building-sized bread. Probably would have been more fun.
You referred to yourself as Chuck the evil sandwich-making guy.
Oh, Chuck is trying to sound more confident.
Perister doesn't get how talking in third person equates to confidence, but it's not like Perister is a dangerous super criminal or anything.
The length of one soccer field twice. That's close to 2 soccer fields.
Forgot for a moment I live in a world where people obsess over kicking balls back and forth. I, meanwhile, am more enlightened and instead play virtual games about throwing paint grenades. So if everyone's obsessed over soccer, does this mean we've secretly been in Europe this whole time? Becky's plans to play soccer in the park are interrupted by Dr. Two Brains, who wants to have picnics on the soccer field.
That's a master plan?
Well, yeah, what's wrong with it?
So this is basically Highway to Havarti in reverse. Because this is a cartoon, they decide to settle matters with a soccer game.
No one can beat a brilliant scientist who stays inside all day and eats cheese!
Honestly, would not be shocked if Two Brains invented some kind of steroid cheese. The narrator gets too into sports commentary while the
Bulg, butterfly, unicorn, laser, gorillas.
Practice, and the game starts bright and early the next day. 20 seconds later, it ends in a tie. I can't tell if this is time compression or just a weird rule set. And the Italian? I'm terrible with accents. Referee has him do a penalty kick. Meatloaf reminds us he's incompetent, and Becky has Violet kick for her so as to not accidentally cheat. Did that stop you from playing the entire game? Violet overcomes her lack of confidence with a narrow ricochet and wins, and WordGirl stops Dr. Two Brains from wrecking the field at a spite. Okay, first off, gotta talk about my boy.
Butterfly, unicorn, laser, gorillas!
Raisin gorillas!
After 2 seasons, Johnson finally returns from being kidnapped by an alternate, and, well, he doesn't do much, but we do get some glimpses of the endearing enthusiasm and bootlicking toward TJ that made/will make him so enjoyable. His maybe sister, though I don't really buy it, Violet, is just as entertaining in the opposite way, being so hesitant and dispassionate in contrast to everyone around her. Her whole arc about becoming confident in her skills, well, it's not really an arc, more a thing that happens that they briefly foreshadow, but it is pretty charming to see her stop being dismayed when she scores the only goal. This episode is basically bookends if Dodgeball was the episode's main point, and if every character was 3 times funnier. There's so many good lines and moments here, from Two Brains being snarkier and goofier than usual, to the narrator living out his secret sports commentator fantasies.
You're right! I am dismayed!
This is a vocal equivalent of those videos where a song is swapped between major and minor key. I don't care for sports stories usually, but this one is so fun I do not care. I kinda wanna see more villains do different sports now. Also, as the sole purveyor of semi-regular WordGirl content, I hereby declare that Butterfly Unicorn Laser Gorillas is now the fandom name for WordGirl, like Bronies or Trekkies. My word is law. Ms. Question somehow gets a Citizen of the Year award meant for Tim. Oh no, we got another Victoria Best on our hands. And Scoops does some investigative reporting to discover Ms. Question has blackmailed the mayor via a new ability to make people confess things. So I guess the logic here is she puts someone in a trance, then forces them to answer her questions instead of asking their own questions. Cartoon superpower metaphysics is complicated. Scoops is forced to confess he collects unicorns, and Ms. Question blackmails him into writing a positive story. WordGirl catches on and chases Ms. Question down, but quickly gets zapped. Ms. Question, for once, wastes no time and nearly gleans WordGirl's identity, but the mayor's intervention allows WordGirl to capture Ms. Question.
Your secret is safe with me, but really, Huggy?
How do you even do that with a Jolly Rancher? WordGirl moves to stop the city from being renamed after Ms. Question, which I guess can't be undone or something, but at least then it'd have a proper name. And WordGirl tells the many blackmailed citizens to confess their secrets themselves to rob Ms. Question of her power.
You confess first, WordGirl.
If you're sailing these people into an iceberg, you don't get to abandon ship, WordGirl. The mayor once again saves the day, rare sentence, by confessing he sleeps with a stuffed bear. I was expecting more I embezzle money from the school and prison systems, or I had an affair with Leslie, but that works too. Everyone confesses their secrets except WordGirl, Ms. Question gets arrested, and Tim gets to eat a giant chocolate key. I wasn't a fan of this premise at first, but it kinda grew on me. Blackmailing is more subtle and subversive than most crimes on the show. I think the closest we've come to this is Granny Mae's scams, and I think Ms. Question's worried shock at everyone revealing their secrets is one of the better villain breakdowns on the show. I'm a bit torn on the moral though. Sometimes confessing a secret is the best call to stop it from having power over you, but sometimes you can't reveal a secret, as embodied by the near misses of WordGirl's secret identity. But while they kinda broach the topic, they don't really explore it. Where do you draw the line in these situations, and what do you do? This could have been a really interesting, nuanced theme, but instead, literally everyone but the main character voluntarily reveals their secrets. It's only by dumb luck and external interference WordGirl isn't exposed. This accidentally comes off as exposing yourself is the right call, except if it isn't. On a lighter note, I like the depictions of Ms. Question, the mayor, and Scoops here. Ms. Question is as entertaining and charismatic as always. It's cool to see Scoops get out in the thick of things for a story, and this is maybe my favorite mayor episode thus far. He actually gets some more downplayed moments compared to his usual volume, and he actually gets to save the day twice. I may be a bit dismayed at how the theme was handled, but I think the character work made up for it. Alright, episode.
What are you people doing?
I secretly collect unicorns.
Really?
Surprised he didn't just call them sword horses to make it seem more macho. Then again, the term sword horse was coined by this character, so...
This is a robot riot! I think you know what I mean!
Becky's grandfather Bampy shows up with gifts, among them a very special screwdriver. Apparently, back when he looked identical to Tim, they couldn't afford unique models back then, Bampy used it to take down a giant robot on his own. TJ buys into the story, but no one else does, least of all the girl who actually fights giant robots. Speaking of giant robots, Toby unleashes the TobyBot 9000, his strongest robot yet. Surprised he didn't also brag about it being the best looking,
My finest and handsomest robot to date.
Toby, you're making me look bad. It's supposedly invincible, due in part to it being programmed to counter all of WordGirl's attacks. WordGirl shows up to fight it, but Toby's boasts end up being accurate, to the point she actually surrenders. Unfortunately, Toby accidentally breaks his remote and is unable to turn it off. Bampy decides to relive his maybe fictional glory days and drags TJ along. Say what you will about kid superheroes, at least WordGirl chose this life herself. I think. Bampy has WordGirl distract the TobyBot while he defeats it with the greatest got-your-nose trick in history. I didn't make that up. I wish I could make that up. Bampy gets the respect he deserves, Toby gets dragged away to once more lose TV privileges as punishment for practically firebombing the city, and Bampy reveals he figured out Becky's WordGirl.
Don't worry, kiddo. Your secret's safe with me. Last one home's an angry armadillo.
So this is just further proof that the city's suffering from lead poisoning and anyone from out of town is 10 times smarter and more perceptive? So, yeah. Bampy.
I was stronger and faster than that silly WordGirl you got flying around her these days.
What's that now?
This man is a delight. He feels like Tim if he had a constant IV of coffee and liked telling stories about his cool past about 35% more. I wonder if there's a reason they're so similar. You cannot be bored while Bampy B. Botsford, at least I assume his middle name starts with B, is on screen.
Nice older man whose family might call him any number of adorable grandpa names, with Bampy being just one possibility.
I love how you can detect the exact moment Bampy figures out Becky is WordGirl, and he also brings out some really funny moments in others.
Fighting a giant robot is a terrible idea!
Worse than eating a giant donut!
See, Tim is totally different from Homer Simpson. I was also surprised by the background. The TobyBot really does live up to it being powerful and supposedly invincible, with the exaggerated level of destruction in the background compared to other episodes. Seriously, take a look around in the city scenes and see how many millions of dollars the government would need to fix this. The only minor issue I have with the episode is the scenes of Becky arguing with Bampy about whether his story is fictional, because Becky being dismissive is, forced, and TJ shrugging her off is out of character, I think. What, do you expect me to just admit these scenes make me feel awkward secondhand embarrassment for no coherent reason? Because I'm not going to say that.
Our main story tonight concerns the potential problems in corporate consolidation of local news. Don't you dare change the channel!
Okay, we got some surprise secret identity stuff last episode. Let's wean ourselves off that. The Daily Rag is all of a sudden pushing bizarre, untrue, and suspiciously purple and green stories. Turns out Mr. Big has somehow become the paper's editor and has been revising Scoops' stories to boost his revenue and brand recognition.
You really expect people to spend their hard-earned money on a newspaper full of stories about the truth?
Someday we'll have a Mr. Big episode that isn't political. On top of this, Mr. Big puts out a call for readers to send in proof of WordGirl's identity in return for jelly beans.
Somebody help me find my camera!
And the Daily Rag's head reporter position. This leads to everyone, citizen and villain alike, snapping pictures of WordGirl while she tries to fight crime. In a moment of respite, she hides behind a bush to take off her helmet, and WordGirl, you nightmarish nincompoop! Yeah, this goes about as poorly as you could expect, and WordGirl checks on Scoops to see if he or anyone else got a usable photo. Okay, fine, recurring background B, I'll acknowledge your existence. The paper claims to know WordGirl's identity now, but is apparently playing coy and says you actually need to send in a picture of Huggy to win. Becky and Scoops finally have enough and decide to take the fight to Mr. Big. WordGirl attacks Big in the Daily Rag office, not sure why she didn't do this from the start, but okay, and Scoops summons a principal, who gives us one of the biggest actual reveals of the series so far.
Shelly Smalls, just what do you think you're doing here?
You know, I feel like this explains a lot about him. Wait, he never goes by that name outside this episode, and Shelly is a name often used for girls. Is it possible that the evil businessman is carted away by his elementary school principal, and WordGirl gets one last bonding moment with Scoops?
Now, what was it you were just saying about Becky being a big help?
Play it cool, WordGirl. You don't want Scoops to figure out you and Becky are dating, do you? Given the circumstances, I wouldn't be surprised if this was originally supposed to be a Toby episode. It would fit. Toby goes to the same school, and he's fixated on WordGirl's secret identity in the past, but nope, we got Mr. Big instead. And it's incredible. As you can guess from elsewhere in the retrospective, I have a soft spot for villains who end up kinda pathetic, and Mr. Big's downfall here really fits the bill. Even the simple fact of him taking over a school newspaper to compensate for a failed childhood goal contributes to that. And yeah, thanks to the Daily Rag's inexplicable readership, he actually manages to have a huge impact anyway. This episode is very plainly a lesson about looking at media with a critical lens and not taking everything it says as gospel. Even a source you trust, like a school newspaper that's been presented as 100% reliable for 2.5 seasons, may not remain reliable forever. You need to take a step back, double check, and question what the source's priorities are. Admittedly, I think the episode focuses a bit too much on the secret identity contest at the expense of showing the effects of misinformation and exploitation, but it's still a really good lesson, and the secret identity plot is decent in its own right. The photography montage is a bit predictable and samey, but I think the music fits it pretty well. And hey, it leads to some good WordGirl Scoops content. I like the moment where WordGirl admits that if anyone had to expose her, she'd want it to be Scoops so he can at least keep his job. It's a little moment that underlines how, while Scoops is her crush, he's first and foremost her friend, someone she genuinely cares for. It's ambiguous whether Becky was actually about to willingly reveal herself to him, but I'd like to think she was. This is also probably one of Scoops' most triumphant moments as well, with him standing up to Mr. Big, going behind his back to print a revised edition. And despite his desire to expose WordGirl, not just in this episode, Scoops is shown to be very ethical and staunchly against misleading people, only getting sidetracked when his job is put on the line. He even knocks out Leslie with a newspaper. Yes, that happens. Speaking of which, between the Thumb War of Destiny and WordGirl nonchalantly wrapping up Mr. Big, this is one of my favorite last fights in the series.
Well, it's personal. Phase 1 was get my grade school job back. Phase 2 was take over the world.
No, Mr. Big, you need to have another phase in between that's just question marks, so that's how the meme goes. Hey, where'd that meme even come from anyway? Really? South Park? Please forget I ever made this joke.
Could we interest you in some chocolate?
Hearts!
It's Valentine's Day in Miss Davis's class.
Have a happy Valentine's Day, or I will destroy you.
The height of romance. Victoria is also here, being the best at making people want to punch her in the face.
Victoria. Best! Victoria Best. That's my name, don't wear it out.
You're already doing a good job of that yourself. Victoria uses her trophy vision to steal everyone's Valentines. Would Valentines count as awards, or is this just general telekinesis? And shows off her amazing leitmotif.
Combing hair, best, Valentine's Day.
WordGirl tries to take the Valentines back, but Toby distracts her with his own Valentine. Let's just ignore that. Victoria decides she wants Toby's literal chocolate heart, but gets ticked off at how much he and Scoops like WordGirl. As such, she decides to indulge her Agent of Chaos side and swap Toby and Scoops' Valentines around, prompting Toby to
challenge you to a duel.
Scoops writes up his own obituary, seriously, and WordGirl rescues him from Toby's robot army before asking who his special Valentine is for. And predictably, it was for... WordGirl gets passive-aggressive before delivering Scoops to safety, I think, and coming up with a new plan to stop Toby. Scoops confesses to Violet.
Thanks, Scoops. That's really...
Nice outfit, Miss Best. You misplace your magical V-themed hair comb? WordGirl goes Victoria into drawing the robot's fire with her hypnotic song, then blackmails her and Toby into quitting for the day when Victoria tries to flee. Does this count as child endangerment if WordGirl is also a child? Okay, this episode should be a mess. It packs in 2 different villains but has them just bounce off each other instead of properly teaming up, abruptly swaps between who's in the spotlight, brings up for the first time that WordGirl is technically in a love triangle, upgrades that to a love square, and combines 2 story concepts that could each carry an episode on their own. It's also my new favorite episode in the series. I don't know how they did it, but they managed to keep this episode feeling coherent and tight. Even if they didn't though, this is one of the funniest WordGirl stories I've seen. Becky and Toby's crushes, Miss Davis making me question whether she should be an elementary teacher, Toby and Scoops forming a rivalry, WordGirl getting snippy, Violet being more adorable than ever.
Sure. What does that mean?
Even Victoria is a marked improvement over her last appearance. She still suffers from the writers having her say her own name more than a Pokemon in place of her acting arrogant in more creative ways, but she's more dramatic and seems to show a bit of a mischievous side. Here, she's more along the lines of Ms. Question, a character with a repetitive one-note gag who's carried by the voice actress.
Actually, I made the cards for the whole class, Victoria, and...
Actually, I made cards for the whole...
And her panic at being chased by the robots is also pretty good. If we see more 1 second away from doing crazy stuff because she can, Victoria, that's a win for me. I just had a huge smile on my face the whole way through, and that's after already seeing it a year ago. I can't even say it's so bad it's good like I expected, it's just good. Really good. I cherish this episode. Oh, and I feel like the WordGirl fandom might start hissing at me for suggesting this, but would Toby and Victoria be a good ship? Victopia?
It's the age-old story how an evil boy meets an evil girl.
I'm not doing an intro gag for this one. F you.
Looking good, Colonel Mustard.
Oh, that poor cat. No amount of Clue references will make me feel anything but sorry for it. Granny Mae wants Cleopatra's candy dish and decides to make herself look trustworthy and charming by accusing other people of crimes. I mean, she's maybe one of the more likely villains to go straight. We've seen thus far Two Brains, Butcher, Whammer, Big Left Hand Guy, and Invisi-Bill probably aren't going to. Granny Mae takes the credit for catching all these criminals, crediting her intuition for her ability to find them, and eventually gets to protect the candy dish. Of course, WordGirl sneaks in and manages to stop her. I am so upset this is dragging down Cherish as a word. This episode combines elements from multiple previous stories and doesn't do any of them particularly well. Much like Down with Word Up and Bonkers for Bingo, it involves Granny Mae pretending to go good so she can steal something. It's closer to the latter in terms of execution, particularly how the city's gullibility veers closer to annoying than engaging, but it also includes WordGirl and Huggy disguising themselves like the former, and thankfully we don't get more people angry at WordGirl outside of one moment where Granny mocks her for supposedly getting beaten to the chase. Then there's the ancient artifact with its own traveling security detail from Seeds of Doubt, an appearance from the mayor invoking Granny Mayor, though it's really only a cameo, and maybe you could argue WordGirl getting trapped in the robotic pyramid has sandwich rolled vibes? Yeah, Granny Mae episodes really tend to suffer from characters being so trusting it breaks suspension of disbelief. At least with Mr. Big, you could argue he's rich enough to let marketing and publicity cover up all his previous misdeeds for a new scam. The one part I will say was pretty good is the montage in the middle. Granny Mae acting like a superhero is an amusing dichotomy, and the police officers pouncing on everyone like the handsome panther is ridiculous enough to make me laugh. Also, Huggy using a crystal ball, because that's basically what intuition is, so good job demonstrating it. Pretty sure we just call it vibes nowadays though.
A time for leisure, recreation, and taking her easy. Unless you're me.
WordGirl stops Amazing Rope Guy from robbing the jewelry store, or rather, she points out he accidentally stole a bunch of donuts and not jewels.
We can take it from here.
Whoa, that was an abrupt entrance.
Yeah, well, we usually wait nearby and watch you work.
You put on a good show.
I think this explains a lot. Becky is upset to find this 30-second excursion made her miss an entire ice cream party, but perks up when she learns a pretty princess behind-the-scenes special is starting. And I'm sure this recreation won't be interrupted by, say, a villain with a history of hijacking TV signals.
Check. Is this thing on? Hello?
WordGirl abruptly defeats Two Brains. He breaks out and hijacks the signal again. WordGirl abruptly defeats him again. He breaks out and hijacks the signal again. WordGirl abruptly defeats him again. He breaks out and hijacks the signal again. WordGirl abruptly defeats him again. He breaks out and hijacks the signal again. WordGirl abruptly defeats him again. He breaks out and hijacks the signal again.
I'm tired of it, okay? There's like 50 of you villains and only one of me.
Yeah, maybe she could use some extra help. Or maybe we're already in the best timeline. WordGirl gets trapped and Two Brains finally gets to explain his evil plan, which is just cheesing the city like every other Two Brains episode. Huggy helps WordGirl stop Two Brains for good, and WordGirl decides to use his equipment to give one last message to any other villains who might interrupt the documentary. I mean, I guess this is a funny moment. And this episode as a whole is pretty dang funny. It takes one of Two Brains' lesser remembered tropes and builds an entire story around it while constantly building WordGirl to a boiling point. The abruptness of WordGirl's takedowns continually increases until Two Brains gets to reveal his plot, which only ticks off WordGirl more.
You should have known that your poultry, that's poultry as in chicken and turkey, not poultry as in small and weak. Your poultry prison would never hold me.
WordGirl's personal time getting interrupted is another aspect that's always been a thing, but has never been leaned into this much, and serves as the bedrock for her fury here. It's the sort of thing that fills you with sympathy that quickly gets pushed out by laughter at how extreme she gets. This episode is how you do a repetitive joke well. Keep the pace up and inject just enough variety that it doesn't get dull. I do gotta wonder how many regular citizens are scared to call WordGirl for help now, though. Sure, this couldn't have consequences.
You can't work out after work?
Nope, I spend all my free time combing my hair.
A bit odd, but who am I to judge how someone else spends their recreation time? I am the authority on recreation time, and Bo Handsome is really weird.
This might be a good spot to find some ingredients.
Chuck succeeds in escaping WordGirl with the help of his new pickle shurikens.
It's pickle time!
But becomes the target of a one-girl manhunt as a result. This complicates things when he wants to enter a sandwich-making contest.
Saturday afternoon.
While Becky manipulates Tim into taking a position as judge for the contest, despite this not actually helping her, Chuck, I guess, flies Nocan in from Contraria to act as his apprentice. Don't think that's the right term here, but whatever.
You see, I lost the Whammer's number, and Dr. Two Brains isn't allowed to come over here anymore, and I don't trust Mr. Big.
So did Chuck actually try and get in touch with Eileen, or did he think she'd say all the sandwiches are more hits, and Chuck quickly learns giving orders to the contrary guy was a bad idea. Though at a certain point, you wonder why Chuck doesn't just give opposite instructions. He's not stupid. I think. Is he supposed to be stupid? Anyway, Chuck exposes himself out of rage, and WordGirl and Huggy fly in to intercept him.
He parked his crusher in broad daylight? How could we have missed that?
Hey, sometimes you just lose track of stuff in a crowded parking lot. Chuck tries to destroy Nocan's sandwich, but in the process magically turns it so scrumptious that Tim declares Nocan the winner on the spot. Chuck is arrested, and Nocan gets to keep the entirety of the prize and credit. Pictured here, a Minecraft player finding a new village. Is it fair to say this is the weirdest team-up thus far? That's probably the point, actually. Nocan's eccentricities bouncing off of Chuck reminds me of the Chuck Whammer team-ups, but if Chuck actually did want to work with Whammer. Nocan's honest attempts to be a sandwich-making apprentice are surprisingly endearing, and it's actually satisfying he gets to walk away with the prize since he didn't actually do anything wrong himself. I joked about how Chuck should have caught on to how his orders were going wrong, but that lack of awareness is what makes it funny, on top of Nocan being as loud as always. And I love how Chuck's master plan at the end is to destroy the sandwich just because he hates it so much.
Oh, wait, that's my sandwich. I get the credit. Come on, it's not fair.
For once, the lazy, delegating, credit-hungry boss gets what they deserve. That's not even the last of the comedy, what with WordGirl getting unusually hardcore about catching Chuck. Not sure why they didn't set up her war room in the spaceship, but maybe they don't have the proper dramatic lighting down there. This is my favorite Nocan episode so far, and I hope he gets to play off other villains more in the future.
Chuck? Yeah, guy who talks to me sometimes, even though I can't see him.
When you put it like that, maybe an interactive narrator isn't the best idea. You can never be sure if you're alone.
And it's
doubly ingenious because we'll also get in to see all the games for free!
The Butcher has lost his zest for crime to the point he can't summon meat anymore. WordGirl thinks this is a good opportunity for him to give up his criminal lifestyle.
You're kidding, right? That kinda sounds boring too.
He decides to visit his dad, Kid Potato, who stopped committing crimes himself due to a back injury.
It's okay, son. This can happen even to the best supervillains.
Yeah, there's no shame in not being able to whip out your meat. Kid Potato offers Butcher a job as a ballpark vendor, in the process becoming one of the few characters besides WordGirl to give a definition, and coincidentally, the Botsfords are attending a game to get over their own boredom.
Don't thank me, thank the Family Adventure Activity Wheel.
You probably could have left the wheel at home, Dad.
I know, but I just love it so much.
More proof that not seeing Tim encounter Seymour Orlando Smooth is a crime. The Butcher is hesitant and overwhelmed at first, not helped by Becky grilling him, but reawakening his meat powers makes him the most successful vendor of hot dogs, and hamburgers, pastrami, bratwurst, etc. on Earth. Unfortunately, the boss skimps out on Butcher's payment, which leads him to rob the boss and everyone else in the ballpark as well. More proof the real evil is bad managers. Kid Potato helps his son fight WordGirl, but he and Huggy both get incapacitated, and WordGirl baseballs the giant meat Eeyore back into Butcher. The food-throwing criminal family finally goes to jail together, and the mostly ordinary monkey-owning family celebrates a decidedly not boring day.
Okay, baby. Give me bun cake. Give me bun cake!
Is this how Mrs. Botsford becomes food villain number 5? Now this is a marked improvement over Meet My Dad. With Butcher and Kid Potato's relationship restored, now we get to see a lot of them helping, bonding with, and caring for each other. I love Kid Potato acting more like a mentor than an overbearing, manipulative boss, and how his advice actually helps Butcher get his powers back. Seeing Kid Potato's house was also a nice touch. It looks like Chuck or Granny Mae's place at first, but the secret lair hidden beneath like the secret sanctum from Spy Kids, but evil, is a nice touch that helps emphasize the long history of Kid Potato we never see. Also, holy shit, is that Butcher's mom? Butcher never actively attempts to turn good, but I love how he puts genuine effort into his new job, and how Kid Potato is genuinely proud of him. It actually makes him turning on his boss maybe a bit more sympathetic than they intended, but you know me, supervillains integrating into normal life is my jam. The final battle is maybe a bit quick, but I love how it leans into the baseball thing with WordGirl hitting the meteor, and especially the narrator going all sports commentator. Again.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the ballpark where we are in the middle of a dandy. WordGirl is battling the Butcher and his dad, Kid Potato.
I wonder if there's some reason he keeps fixating on sports commentary.
Which reminds me, I need to call my brother Glenn, the sportscaster, who I'm not envious of at all.
Anyway, if nothing else, this is a better baseball episode than the Home Run King. Actually, come to think of it, the show itself seems to be doing a lot more sports stuff this season.
Unofficial WordGirl waterbed!
This game show is gonna have a class action suit against it eventually, mark my words.
The robot!
Oh, you idiots!
Teacher, parent, conferences. Dun dun dun.
I am so glad we ditched Mr. Dudley for this disaster of a woman. During conferences, the students are all stuck in the auditorium watching Amazing Rope Guy do rope tricks. Deciding to do anything but that, Becky and Violet strike up conversations with Toby, force Toby to listen to them talk to each other, and Toby soon reveals he's built a robot duplicate of his mother to stop the real one from finding about his recent poor performance. As in, he got a B+. Once. Surprised that's the worst of it with how much detention and juvenile hall time he probably has. Guess this confirms Violet doesn't have a dad. This poor bee is starved for attention now, and I think that's my fault. Toby says he used a fake letter from the school to trick his real mom into not coming. I felt like Claire was smarter than this, but hey, otherwise it's a decent plan. It's not like anyone else could potentially give the game away to her. Becky's conference goes well. Toby's doesn't. Despite Miss Davis somehow giving him a good review, a comment on how he should focus less on robots makes Mobot go berserk. For some reason, the robot specifically built for deception is one of Toby's stronger robots, but WordGirl gets bailed out by, of all people, Amazing Rope Guy, who defeats Mobot with a lasso, and gets no credit. Now I feel bad. And Claire shows up at last, showing no reaction to Toby impersonating her. I did not expect this episode to be as good as it was. Mobot herself is amusing before she goes rampant, and the Botsfords get some pretty good material with Miss Davis as well.
Is it an elephant?
I'm thinking it might be a tunnel.
I'm afraid in this case, there are no right answers.
But there are two major highlights I want to focus on. First, the auditorium. Becky, Violet, and Toby have some great banter, and I always love some Violet-Toby interactions. Toby constantly demands everyone take him seriously, but the girls just don't care. These scenes also give a decent locked room scenario where Becky is forced to figure out how to escape the auditorium, eventually succeeding when everyone cheers for Amazing Rope Guy leaving. Speaking of which, I don't know how they did it, but they actually made Amazing Rope Guy a main character again, and once more didn't screw him up. Unlike What a Tangle Knot You Tie, here ARG is just a recurring gag playing out while like a regular appearance from him stretch over an episode. When he shows up for the fight and actually succeeds, it's the twist that makes it work without detracting too much from his punching bag bit. It helps that no one acknowledges his efforts at all, though I'm not that big a fan of the execution on that. It kinda turns him from pathetic to unjustly disrespected, which makes me a little peeved. But I hope I'm communicating how fun an episode this is regardless. It's different from other Toby episodes due to how low-key his plan is.
Toby is a good student, true or false?
By Toby standards, and good use of Amazing Rope Guy is the icing on the robotic cake. Would that be, like, what you eat for dessert after a robo sandwich?
And how old are you, Squeak? That's great. You don't look a day older than Squeak Squeak.
Maybe Amazing Rope Guy's true vocation was stand-up comedy this whole time. Could fit the talent for impersonations in. Ooh boy, another two-parter. Can't wait to see how much cool new action they pack in here. So apparently Scoops just has his own talk show now, and WordGirl once more comes on for an interview. This time, she's specifically there to reminisce about fighting Dr. Two Brains, and Scoops facilitates this with actual clips from the show, which diegetically exists in universe. Multiple clips, mostly ones where Two Brains is embarrassed, play with WordGirl and Scoops serving as a bad YouTube React channel, mocking Dr. Two Brains. But the Doctor turns out to be watching live and soon pops in to hijack the show. After the cliffhanger, Two Brains holds Scoops and Huggy hostage and forces WordGirl to watch more clips, but ones where he looks good or WordGirl looks stupid, even though, as WordGirl points out, all these moments eventually led to her winning, and Two Brains even shows a clip from an episode we already saw his defeat from earlier. WordGirl eventually makes her move, and the skirmish ends when she pulls a deliberately bad move to distract him and the henchman with laughter. WordGirl and Scoops then blast through the rest of the interview.
What is your favorite word?
That's easy. Word.
Cop out.
What's your second favorite word?
It's a tie between all other words.
Does that include the slurs? Well, that was certainly a clip show. I don't dislike the idea of a clip show. I think it can actually make for a really good episode in the right circumstances. A lot of Power Ranger seasons, for example, have clip shows near the end and are usually used as a calm before the storm, before the finale. I think a better comparison for here, though, would be Transformers Prime, which had 2 clip shows, both in the same season for some reason. While they both have a running theme of questioning whether a given character is trustworthy, they're largely played more for comedy with everyone's reactions to the clips. A Better Mousetrap is going for a similar idea, but it's just not creative or entertaining enough. The TFP clip shows made use of varied reactions and juxtaposition to cobble brand new jokes together. It's not just here scene from past episode, here characters reacting to scene from past episode. We have stuff like Agent Fowler saying the kids take orders well, juxtaposed with Jack taking someone's order at a burger place, or revealing that after Starscream imposingly took command at the end of the premiere, he started dancing for no reason. Meanwhile, in WordGirl, the characters just laugh. They make some jokes that sometimes feel like all the stereotypes about Marvel quipping. Some of them are funny, but some aren't, and the format gets stale real fast. There's a few extra jokes playing on the fact this is an in-universe TV show, the classic reveal the audience reactions are just a recording gag, for example, but for a joke-focused episode, the jokes by and large don't really work. And since this is a clip show, the story is downplayed significantly. My plot summary had a lower word count than a lot of single-parters because no one wants me to go, and then they play a clip from a simple plan, then Mousezilla, then a montage of Huggy suffering, then I don't know what because I fell asleep. I suppose the idea of a villain hijacking a WordGirl interview is a fun idea, but they could have done a lot more with it. This episode had so much potential, and it irks me that it fell this flat. I don't think this is the worst WordGirl episode. It's not boring or annoying to watch like a few others, but it's definitely the most disappointing. The most interesting thing here is how they use a clip from one of the original shorts, which really smacks you in the face with the small but distinct differences in character design, animation, and vocal performance. And I have no good ideas for an ending gag, so screw it, here's a clip show of my own.
What other show has its first appearance of military personnel involve threatening people's hair to get cheese? I forgot the mice were ninjas in this episode.
That big red self-destruct button, which is right on your back.
Well, it's not the worst place to put a self-destruct button. Hey, this is Toby's first time actually getting arrested. They grow up so fast. They seem to be particularly loyal to Two Brains for some reason.
Also, we get to see the mouse brain wearing a nightcap and its own mustache.
Forced into a moral quandary, she ultimately decides not to sell.
Can I help you carry them to your van?
She's meeting an evil mad scientist who threatened goop-based terrorism.
I'm on a roll, so let's just start with this. Least favorite episode pair is A Better Mousetrap, parts 1 and 2. I literally just explained this, so let's move on. Though I will say, it's nice to have a really good/bad two-parter since I don't need to worry about balancing episodes against their counterparts. Speaking of which, the best pair was a lot trickier. I wanted so bad to put Cherish as the word on, but I refused to give Granny's intuition the light of day again, so the next best thing is the straw that broke Two Brains' back, and Nocan the evil ingredient finding guy. I put a breath in the script, but I had to do it early, geez. Of course I had to pick the pair with the longest titles in the show. They're probably the two silliest episodes in the season, aside from the obvious, and they do new things with the central characters. Also, both WordGirl and Chuck get to fly off the handle like they deserve. As I was writing, I thought I'd end up saying this was a disappointing season, but actually there were fewer disappointments than I expected. I think new villains leave something to be desired, but they have some potential, and I liked the creative concepts like Toby builds a robot of his mom, or Mr. Big uses a TV show to brainwash WordGirl, or Becky's grandfather is the coolest person ever. The amount of non-obvious villain team-ups helped this, giving a bunch of interesting and unexpected dynamics that mostly paid off. I think taking a break for that Power Rangers video was good for me, because I'm feeling less burnt out than I was last time. But as for what comes after... next time on...
I need you.
Yeah, now I really have to go.
This superhero shield doesn't defend against fruitcakes.
Wheel of the Banshee Show.
The shoes.
If you want to catch a glimpse of what it's like...
Leslie is our master. She is so smart. One more time.
I'm not just king of the sandwiches. I'm the king of the world.
Damn it, I forgot to use Mope in the Meatlife Crisis segment.